Hello, we recently reached out to you on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube to ask us some questions about the industry and Halloween the Hunt of Michael Myers. We're going to answer them questions today and we're going to start with Facebook. So Michelle asked, what made you want to get into the industry? Would you like to start things off, Morgan?
Of course, yeah. Well, what made me want to get into it personally was basically to have a side hustle, if you like, from working, studying. So as at the time of filming, I work full time, I study part time, and I needed an escape from working and studying constantly, and just filming just so happened to be that escape for me. From a young age, I was into like horror films from my dad, thanks Dad, and my dad also worked as a runner on a few little like sort of TV productions and stuff like that. So I always felt it was like not an ambition, but a sort of a desire to have like a hobby away from just my day-to-day life, really.
Yeah, and for myself, I've been in the, always had a passion for performing arts, and obviously when I was young, I always wanted to be an actor. Went away and did a few different things, college-wise, and then decided I needed to go back to my number one passion, and I needed to go back to what I always wanted to do and try and push myself as far into the industry as possible.
So Lakeisha asks, how long did the film take to produce?
Well, if we're going from writing all the way through to completion, about 2.5 years.
Yeah, roughly 2.5 years. I think probably just under, if we're thinking June 2022 is when we really started to obviously put the script together, and then obviously release was October 2024. So yeah, just under 2.5 years.
Jamie has asked quite a few questions, so we're just going to answer them one by one. So the first question is, what was your collaboration process like with the actors to bring their characters to life? Do you want to start that one?
Yeah, it was mainly, so to start off with, we wanted to obviously get a feel for all the cast, so all the cast who we interviewed and met, and also those who did auditions. Not everyone did an audition, but a good number of them did auditions. It was about fitting the character to that cast member and being able to give them a sort of creative and also fairly free role in terms of how they approached it. So some other actors like to use techniques where they think about 5 key characteristics that character has, not naming names here, but just as an example, where they sort of base off how they think they're going to mould into that character, and that's a technique that we really liked. So we kind of give the actors a lot of sort of creative freedom, if you like, but at the same time, as long as they stay fairly close to what we sort of envisioned in our heads, and that works for us. So the next question is, what was your inspirations behind wanting to make the film? Jake, you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, so when we'd always wanted to do obviously a film, and obviously COVID stopped our original idea for a fan film, and we were actually both sat at my house after a game. We'd gone to watch our local side, Morecambe, unfortunately lose. So we were both sitting at mine with a few other friends, and we always whenever we got together on a Saturday night, we'd always have, say, Chinese, pizza, something, and we'd always have the TV or music on in the background. And on this particular evening, we had the TV on, and it was around August, September 22. So they were just starting to show Halloween films, and Halloween, the original 1978 one, was on the TV. And I just had a few thoughts in my head thinking, what hasn't been done yet and where the story could go. And then a couple of days later I decided, okay, I'm going to have a dabble at this. So by the following Thursday night, I'd emailed Morgan here the first 10 pages of the script, and his response was, "You're onto something, finish this." And about 3-4 months later, we had a complete script, and that was really our main ambition for doing it. Just, obviously we both enjoyed the franchise, we're fans of the franchise. And then just that one simple evening where it's on in the background, where you're not usually concentrating on what's on, you're usually chatting, eating, but it drove me to it again. It's sort of a easy watch thing to me, you know, something you can watch in the background whilst you're doing other things because it's enjoyable and you can dip in and out of it. Okay, so the next question is, what is one scene that you are particularly proud of and why? I mean, I think we're
gonna both agree on this. Yeah, so it was the scene where we got to the Myers house, so obviously where the sheriff and Loomis go round and they start looking for Michael, so they split up and check obviously the downstairs and the upstairs, and it's the way that the tension and the atmosphere builds. It's also the colour grading on that scene. So originally that building was a lot lighter than you see in the final cut, and that was thanks to our editor Callum, who's managed to do an unreal job with the colour grading on that scene, just making it look much darker and gloomier. And just we love the build up and the suspense, and obviously the point where Michael obviously emerges. Well, I play Michael, but the point where I emerge and grab Thomas by the throat and push him up against the wall. Fun fact: we actually had some little white kind of pallets to put him on, so that it made it look like I was pushing him up the wall. I mean, I obviously don't have anywhere near the strength in my arm to push him up, but yeah, that's a little fun fact. But no, I think generally that scene, the way it builds up and the way it sort of culminates in Michael falling out of the window.
And in terms of the final finished effect of it, the score of it as well.
Score. Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah.
You know, I can't say much more. I agree with everything Morgan said there. We both think that scene is our favourite of the film, and you know we're very proud and happy with that one.
Next question is, how did you go about picking the locations for the film?
Well, we went through various for the likes of the prison and the Myers house. We went through location agencies, and that's how we found them. We obviously had to liaise with the one of them was Location Partnership, the other one was Creative England. We had to liaise with them and then with the owners of the sites, and that's how we found them, through actual databases on websites. The others, so Alison's house at the end, what is a place called Lanticilio Hall. We actually found that on an Airbnb because when we were filming there, we wanted somewhere where we could also stay for the weekend with our cast and crew. We found it easier if where we were filming was where we were staying, with the distance away from where we all are. So it was ideal to stay there. But yeah, we found that on an Airbnb. And in terms of the street scenes, we actually just went around locally where we are and picked scenes that we, streets where we thought could give the best representation of Haddonfield from our point of view. Also, in terms of we don't have the budget and we're not the size production wise to shut roads, closures of roads, so we had to go somewhere which was quiet. There was not a lot of traffic, so there was a lot of sitting around, scoping places out, liaising with councils, liaising with local MPs, making sure that we did this correctly and making sure that we found the right locations to fit not just ourselves but also that where we could, you know, not disturb residents too much. You know, we weren't creating a nuisance or we weren't blocking access for people, so that was probably the hardest bit of location hunting we had to do in terms of.
Just to add, the official locations, well not official, but ones we found on databases and the Airbnb, were actually a lot easier and more sort of hassle-free than doing the streets. Mainly because they were set in privately owned areas and we were able to just kind of get on with it because we had exclusivity for the day. With the streets, obviously, it's public right of way, which means you are allowed to film, but you've also got to be, you know, considerate and aware of other members of the public as well, which is never easy.
And the final question from Jamie is, when's the next film out? You will be seeing an announcement on New Year's Day of what our next project is. We're well in planning with it, we're well on top of everything, and we'll be really excited to share it with you on New Year's Day. I'm guessing a lot of you already have an inkling of where we're going next with what we're doing, but the title and everything will be revealed on New Year's Day at 12 noon.
And that's all I can tell you for now. So 2 questions from Millie. The first one is, how long have you wanted to do a film for?
So I'll take that one.
Yeah, so I mean, our friendship goes back many years, and our first ambitions for a film go back around 4 or 5 years now. I forget the exact month and year, but it was mainly around then when we started looking at fan films. But even before then, we looked at obviously our own Doctor Who series, and also a Walking Dead series as well. So we always knew that, you know, being behind a camera, whether that's acting or directing or writing, was always something that we enjoyed doing. In terms of the film, about 4 or 5 years when we first looked at our idea for a Bond film, a James Bond film, which unfortunately never got off the ground due to COVID and another few other bits and pieces that prevented that. But it is something that we'd certainly be open to visiting in the future potentially.
Final question on Facebook, and again from Millie. How did you pull a cast together? So we actually used casting sites called Star Now and Mandy. So what we do is we send out an advert showing the roles we have available, and people apply. You know, obviously there's a lot to go into it. We give them a description of the character, what we're looking for, a bit about us, and then the actors can apply. We then would go through the actors, we shortlisted, interviewed, and then pick the best candidates we thought would fit the role.
Yeah.
We're very happy with everyone we got. You know, we're really delighted with the cast and the crew we also got. We were really lucky with our picks, let's say.
I think it helped as well that when we interviewed the cast, we actually had our own presentation to show everyone, and that really, I feel, sold the project to a lot of people, and helped us get some really good people on board.
Okay, so now we're going to head over onto Instagram.
Question from one of our cast, Hugh Van Ashton, hope I pronounced that correctly, is, apart from Halloween, if you got the opportunity to make another fan film, what film would you choose? So we've already touched on it, but we looked at the Bond film idea that we had a few years ago, and we'd be very keen to revisit that in the future. We'd also like, obviously, to do our own Doctor Who stuff as well, if the time rises again.
Just gonna say that.
Yeah, both think of the same thing there. But no, I think if we can sort of apply our own ideas to that universe, if you like, then that'll be
the
really
Whoniverse.
cool. The Whoniverse. Then that will be a really cool avenue to explore.
Yeah, I think because obviously when we first did it, I was 12, 13. We actually had it on our YouTube channel. But when you're 16, 17, going to college, and you're sort of trying to become popular with the female sex, and they type in your name on YouTube and you come up running around in a dressing gown pretending to be Doctor Who, it's not an attractive appeal. So unfortunately we did take it all down. But if time and budget allowed, I would like to put more budget and do a bigger version of the Doctor Who series in terms of fan stuff. But we also, going away from fan stuff, we also have ideas of where we want to go with our own original ideas after our next project. We're always talking about new ideas and where we can take JJL next. But yeah, definitely, obviously, like Morgan touched on as well, the Bond. We'd love to do that again because we do think it's a little outdated now. 5 years ago, so there's a lot happened in the world.
The script will need a refresh. Yeah,
certainly. A lot's happened in the world now, so it needs a lot of, pulling back out and putting back. But we would love to, if time and budget allowed, to revisit that one day. So the next question's from Jake, and he's asked a question which we've, I'd say we'd already answered, but we'll
I can provide another scene that I enjoyed.
What was your favourite scene to film?
Well, we've talked about our favourite scene, but I'll talk about our second favourite, if you like, or my second favourite personally. I'll actually go with a favourite shoot day, actually, in terms of pure shooting.
Okay.
And it was actually the day at the Consult Centre in Morecambe.
Really?
Yeah, with the 2 doctors. That was a really fun scene to film, and we learnt a lot about Christopher and Matt, who played the 2 doctors. gave lots of really good insight to their backgrounds and their acting journeys. And they also filmed a nice little improv scene, which you can view on Behind the Mask. Go and watch Behind the Mask if you haven't already. There's a little plug there.
Yeah.
But no, I just think that day was it was very smooth. It was a good day in a really good space that's no longer there now. So it's almost like a memory of kind of, you know, what used to be there, and the fact that we can claim that we've made a feature film in partnership with the Consult Centre, who are really great people as well, by the way.
I think I'd say, in terms of, obviously, yeah, we have the Myers as our favourite. I think in terms of, that's our favourite scene in the film, but in terms of enjoyment of filming, I'd probably say everything at Lanticilio Hall. It was such a fantastic weekend, you know.
I was tired though, and drunk.
Yeah. But it was such a fun weekend. So many laughs, so many, you know, really good, you know, and that's a weekend that will live with me for a very long time. Yeah, I'd probably say after the Myers house, the Lanticilio Hall stuff is my favourite part of the film.
Dylan asks, what was the hardest challenge with making this film?
Where do we start?
I think making this feature film has shown that we've got a lot of strong aspects to our personalities, that we're very resilient in the face of challenges and adversity, and I think that's something that's not to be sniffed at. In terms of, if I had to pick one hardest aspect, it would be replacing members of the cast who, for one reason or other, weren't able to commit to the project. Again, not naming names, but there were a couple of cast members who we had to replace midway through shoots. We had to postpone one shoot entirely from mid-October to early December, when it was then freezing cold. And yeah, being able to source, you know, replacements for those cast members who have both been absolutely excellent, by the way, and who we would love to work with again in the future. That was definitely one of the biggest challenges, or the biggest challenge for me personally. You know, those late sleepless nights that I had trying to source those replacement cast members, just so the project could run smoothly, and so that we could complete shooting on time, was probably the biggest challenge for me.
I think a big one for me in my eyes was, obviously, with a lot of the film taking place outside, is trying to work around the weather. A lot of, obviously, we've having to have longer nights. We had to film in the winter, the late autumn and winter, so it was trying to control what we can, you know, when we shoot and where we shoot, trying to look at forecasts which are never right a week before filming, and trying to decide, right, if the rain's there, can we do the driving scenes at that point? When it's sort of dry, can we do that bit there, or can we do, when it's just raining a slight bit, the bit under the trees or something, you know? It was trying to work around that was very difficult. I know there's a few things a few other alternate angles that we wanted that we had to actually completely squash because the weather was so bad at times. We had to just say, look, we're gonna have to call it a night here. We've got the angles we need. Yeah, it'd be nice to get more angles, but the weather was just torrential at times. So yeah, I'd say that was a very difficult challenge to overcome. So we're going to go on to YouTube now for the final question. And at CookieLove651 has asked, will you all ever do a fan film about Jamie Lloyd from Halloween 4?
That's an interesting question, and it's not one it's not an avenue or direction I'd actually considered before. We obviously have our own plans for what our next project will be going forward. So similar to kind of what's already been said, I would just say watch this space in the new year and see what's coming next. But never say never.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. Never say never, you know. We know where we want to go at the moment and where we will go, but I'd never rule out anything in the future, you know, if opportunities arise and solid ideas come to mind and we believe they're strong enough to put down on paper and go ahead with, you know, we'd never rule anything like that out. So that completes our question and answers today. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, follow on our YouTube, Facebook and Instagram. And again, watch out on the 1st of January at midday for the announcement of our next project. Thank you and good night.
Don't forget to click below
To subscribe to the JJL Productions YouTube channel.